Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pivot Point, the podcast where we explore real stories of growth, challenge, and transformation from leaders driving change in their industries. I'm your host, Corey Finnie, and I'm really glad you're here. Now, before we dive in, Pivot Point is brought to you by Xenova IQ, where we help growing service businesses scale smarter using AI-driven systems for operations, marketing, and leadership. If you're building something real and want to streamline while scaling, check out our future episodes or DM the word growth to start a conversation. Today, we're diving into the commercial HVAC and plumbing world, a space that keeps everything running behind the scenes in buildings, restaurants, factories, and more. I'm joined by Karen, and I apologize I didn't ask how to say your name. It's a tough one. I'm going to
Crnkovich.
Kirkovich.
Crnkovich, like circle.
Crnkovich. Okay. Karen Crnkovich, owner and chief handshaker of DMC Service Inc., a company known for maintaining, repairing, and replacing critical equipment in commercial spaces. Karen, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you on.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, it's super to have you here. Now, before we get into the business side, I heard something that really stood out. In your free time, you're actually running for public office. Is that correct?
Yes. Some people play pickleball. Apparently, I like to volunteer, and that has segued into running for public office. I ran in 24 for a pretty significant role that I didn't quite make it through the primary, but I came awful close. And considering I was the severe underdog, I think I surprised a lot of people with coming in with 47% of the vote in my hot
Wow.
primary. Yeah, it was quite an experience. Yeah, and it was I was running for U.S. Congress in my district in Kansas, and
Wow.
the race that I was a part of, my primary, I ended up closing the money gap, which means amount of money I raised versus my competitor, and the number of votes I received versus my competitor. That gap, I closed of the highest percentage of any race in the country in the 2024 cycle. So I'm pretty proud of that. Even though I didn't win, I felt like a winner. And I just, after a lot of contemplation and prayer and thinking about how I could best serve, I've decided to set my sights on a more local level race. So I'm running for my county commission chair position it's a 26 election. So we just launched my campaign just over a month ago, and so far it's going really well. And I'm doing it not because of any other reason that I love to serve and solve problems, and I like to do so in a way that is really meaningful and transparent. And I believe in accountability for government. Something that is sorely lacking is transparency and accountability, and I hope to bring that to my county.
Wow, that's exciting. Fantastic. I'm so impressed that you did so well in the congressional primary. That is amazing. Is that we would be having a different conversation if you're running for that again, because that's a pretty high level. We'd be talking about, are you ready and how would you transition your business? But at the local level, is that a full-time? That's not a full-time position, is it? So you'll still be able to run your business?
Yeah, and really I am the kind of person who naturally always thinks with the end in mind. I knew I wanted to run for Congress over 6 years ago. And so a part of my scaling and my business story was making sure that I had the right people in the right positions to allow me to take a pretty significant step back from the day to day in order to focus my efforts on serving our community at a different level. And so that still reigns true today. In fact, when the election was over and, I was no longer a candidate in August of 25, I think some of the folks on my team were like, okay, what are you going to do next? Because you're back, you're paying attention, you're getting things, and we've got this. And so anyway.
Yeah, that's a full-time job running for Congress. I understand.
Yeah.
My brother actually is running for Congress in the next race in Houston.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah,
best of luck to him.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
It's no joke. It's no joke.
It's a full-time gig for him.
Yeah,
Um,
it was for me as well.
well, let's tell us about a little bit about the story about how your company came to life, and then we'll zoom in on the business model and what makes your approach different. And then after that, we'll dig into some of the challenges you face, what's working, what's not, what growth looks like for you in the coming years, and as well, I didn't have this in mind, but I'd like to know how you've. I mean, it sounds like you've really been effective at scaling and being able to put yourself in a position where you're working on the business instead of in the business. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that. And then, if it makes sense, we'll end with a quick chat about how we might be able to support each other. Does that
Yeah,
sound good?
sounds great.
All
So,
right. Well, let's take it from the top. What got you into the HVAC and plumbing space? When did you first decide DMC Service Inc. would be the right place for you?
yeah, so the short answer is I said yes. And the slightly longer answer is our company was founded 21 years ago by my ex-husband. And he his the beginning story of DMC is it was the kind of quintessential I can do things better and I want to work for myself. And so, he started doing exactly that. And it was him and his truck. And that first year was very early in when I had met him. Um, and so he was kind of starting the company in the first year. He had one customer and he made $30,000. And so I kind of supported the both of us while he was building the business. And then it was about 15, 16 years ago that he'd grown and scaled, and it started making some decent money. And he is, and I would say this to him if he was sitting right next to me, because the end of the story is we're really great friends and each other's cheerleaders and biggest champions, but we're just not
Good.
married anymore. And but 15, 16 years ago, I recognized, like, hey, he's a brilliant technician, but in terms of procedures and invoicing and accounting and all of the back office kind of things, maybe not his spiritual gift. So we made a decision as a couple to go ahead and put all our eggs in one basket. And I came to work for DMC. I took over all of the accounting functions immediately. Accounting is not my background. My background is sales. So I taught myself QuickBooks on taking an online course, and was kind of thrown into the deep end in terms of managing the financials of the company. And then alongside that, I saw opportunities for networking and growing and continuing to diversify our customer base. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And then it was 11 years ago, life happened, and he didn't want to be a part of the company anymore. He kind of had an enormous amount of burnout, which also is not uncommon with people who start their own companies and run themselves into the ground. And so I bought him out. Is basically how it happened. If you'd asked me 30 years ago when I was graduating college, 30-ish years ago when I was graduating college, if I thought I would be running my own heating, cooling, and plumbing company, I would have said, absolutely not. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. And yet here I am. And in that time, part of the reason why I went ahead and bought him out of the company was I saw an enormous opportunity in the trades to build a business that was different, that led with culture first, and takes care of our people and our customers in a way that leads with transparency. It's made me very frustrated and slightly angry that in the trades, and especially in the HVAC and plumbing space, transparency has started to go in the other direction. And I have lots of thoughts on that. But I don't believe that is the best way for our customers. And so I decided to try to do things different. And the results have been, relatively successful. I'm not going to buy an island off of Florida anytime soon, but I'm really happy with how we've scaled, and more happy with the culture that my company has and what we do for our employees and our customers and the community at large.
Well, that's fantastic. I spent some time in your website and saw that you had some pretty big accolades as a business in your community in Kansas City, and that your employees are just. I mean, you can tell it just speaks to your culture. The interviews that were on your website regarding your employees. So, congratulations. I know that's a difficult thing. I've been in the home services before, and I work with closely with another friend who's has an installation business nationwide, and it's a very blue collar world and technical world, and he, like yourself, really focuses on culture, and it's amazing as I've been working with this company as a consultant. I just to see the amount of loyalty and interest in the company and support for the company, protection of the company that his people have, and it's good to see, because otherwise it's all short sighted.
Right.
You might make money, you might make a buck here and there, but if you're not looking after your people, they're not looking after your customer, and your customer and your people are what is your business. So, congratulations to that.
Thank
Um,
you.
what would you say as the most surprised you the most about starting, or I guess not starting, but running the business? Like, what was a big eye opener, or surprising thing for you when you look back that you didn't expect once you started running a business?
Um, hmm, that's a great question. I don't know that there's ever been something that I've been like, wow, I didn't expect that. I think it's more individual one off stories that you can't make up of weird things on a job site or interesting choices that employees have made that mean they're no longer employees. It's those kind of things that I'm just like, wow, okay, that's a new one for me. So it's more like individual behaviors, not necessarily. I knew it would be hard
Yeah.
when and I knew. Um, you know, 15 years ago when I bought in as a majority owner, I, I anticipated that there would be challenges that were unknown. I knew it's like that old adage, you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah.
And I've always been very, I have a high tolerance for risk and change. I actually thrive on risk and change. And so it was those things that a lot of people are like, oh gosh, I never knew that you would, have a bank that you thought you had a great relationship with. And then they come and they're like, no, we can't extend your line of credit, even though you're showing good growth. Or, things like that don't ever surprise me, which is, I don't know, just kind of how I'm wired. But there have definitely been surprising moments with employees. And,
That's
a lot of times it's their, for example, I had an employee once who thought that he could basically extort me because we had very few people at that time. And he knew that he was one of the very few. And so he thought that he could demand that I just give him $5,000 cash on the spot. And yeah,
wow.
yeah.
That's
And when I told him,
that's
well,
cool.
yeah, like you don't value me, or I deserve this. And, he had his own financial issues going on at home. Nobody goes and basically
Yeah.
tries to put a, figurative gun to someone's head and say, well, if you want me to stay here, you've got to give me $5,000. No employee does that, who is thinking rationally, but this
Yeah.
person sure did. And they sure had convinced themselves that they were owed that. And this is back when I had basically two HVAC technicians and one plumber. I mean, there was only, five of us in the company. And so this guy thought he could hold me over the barrel. He didn't know me very well, because
No.
I was absolutely not going to be held over the barrel by anyone. And when I came up with a creative solution, which was, okay, I'll give you five grand, but I'm going to do it over 3 months. And then, that conversation turned into, well, what do you think? I'm going to take your money and quit? And I was like, no, not at all. But is that something you're thinking of? And, shortly after we parted ways.
Yeah.
But,
Pretty hard
it,
to come back from, I'm sure.
well, this person had shown his true colors, which I already knew. And I think that's the thing that a lot of times business owners or leaders in any organization, they know they're problem children. They
Yeah.
100% do. They just are fearful because this person did have a lot of skills. They had a skill set that I needed at the time. But I mean, I will figure things out rather than be held hostage by bad actors.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's a true entrepreneur there. You're not worried about the reacting. You're worried about being proactive and finding a solution and preparing to move on without that individual. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting story. Thanks for sharing that with us. Let's zoom in on DMC a little bit more and tell me a little bit more about what you do as a company in your Kansas City market.
Yeah. So we are commercial service contractor. So what that means is we focus on commercial buildings. We do residential. I always tell people residential is like the gravy on top, but we don't focus as I don't consider myself a home services company. I'm a commercial contractor in warehouses. We have restaurants, office buildings, distribution centers, manufacturing plants, and we fix, maintain, and replace critical systems and equipment. Otherwise, we're HVAC. We fix the HVAC and we fix the plumbing. That could be anything from a toilet and a urinal, a backed up drain, to a fire main repair where we're digging underground to repair fire mains, water mains, sewer lines.
So is it all service work or is it construction as well? Is it new
It is
construction too?
It is predominantly service work. On the HVAC side of things, we have built out a little crew that does tenant improvement, not new construction, but more remodeling of current spaces for new tenants.
So most of your business is really, on time business. It's like
Yeah.
right now.
It
It's
is. It is right now. I always tell anybody who joins our team, you never know. Every day is a new adventure. We could have the schedule all laid out, ready to go the night before. Wake up in the morning, and the whole thing is completely blown up, and we're switching things around. And I always tell new customers, or I don't tell new customers now. Like we
yeah,
communicate to new customers that our business model is basically equivalent to an emergency room. If you come in and you've got a cut on your finger, if we don't have anything going on, we can fix your cut on the finger right now. But if somebody comes in and they're, have an arm hole, falling off, we're going to move them to the front of the line. And most customers get that and are
sure.
really understanding and patient. And the other thing I always tell people is when you're the person with the broken arm, you want us to move you to the front of the line.
That's right.
Rest assured, we will, and we do. So that is, it is constantly ever changing and shifting.
I'm sure they appreciate that for sure. And they understand the way your business works. It's not just a first come, first serve.
Right.
Now, do you have all in-house techs or do you have subs as well?
No, we are 100%. The only thing we sub out are things like controls. We don't have a controls person on staff because we don't deal with controls on the HVAC side on a daily basis. We sub out our underground excavation work when we have underground work that needs to be completed.
Right.
We sub out things like core cutting, like concrete cutting,
Sure.
concrete, electrical. But our core functions, my plumbers, my HVAC team, they're all W-2 employees.
And how do you balance new growth with maintaining existing clients? Do you have any challenges there?
I mean, I think it's always a challenge to grow, but if you're not growing, you're dying. So we do, as of this year, have added a role for a director of business development for us to continue to scale. And our business model is that's a knock on wood. I have never laid somebody off because of lack of work. What we do is we grow until we see the demand is there enough to add another person. And that has been very successful for us. It means we move a little bit slower than, an average company. I've seen a lot of companies be like, oh, we hired 10 new techs this month. I'm like, yeah, but what happens when all your work dries up or you don't have a pipeline to fill that and 2 months from now you're laying off people? I just think that's a really crap way to treat humans.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, I've got a really big demand right now, so I'm going to hire you, and then 2 months later you're going to be looking for work. So we kind of take the slow and steady approach, but I feel like that is a much more sustainable and long term than the way I see some companies just, they're completely on a roller coaster ride 90% of the time.
Well, that controlled sustainable growth means that as you get more and more demand, your techs have to step up a little bit more, but then they at least
Yes.
know their jobs, in is safe, and they're going to be around for a bit if they're getting called on to do extra work all the time.
Yeah. And I really value work life balance to the very best of our ability. We are a 24/7 business model. Um, but we also, make sure we have a pretty generous time off policy. We also have a flex policy. If somebody, for example, somebody has kids and they're sick, when they call in and their kid is sick, we work it out, we figure it out. We don't say, well, you figure it out and get your butt to work. We say, okay, you need the time off. We've had employees whose spouses have been ill, or simple things like somebody's coaching their kids baseball team or flag football or soccer, fill in the blank, and they want to get off a little early in the afternoon to be able to go do that. We try to lead with, yes, we will do our best to make that happen most of the time. And when we have a rotating on-call schedule, we don't schedule our on-call technicians after hours. A lot of companies will do that. They'll be like, you're on call, you're ours for this day or this week or whatever the period of time is. And we're going to set, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock calls for you to go to with customers. We don't do that. We schedule a normal work day, and then they only get called out in the event of emergency. And I know my technicians really appreciate that. So they're not, there are times when we ask them to work overtime and work late or on the weekends, but because we don't abuse that and we don't take advantage of them when it's not 100% necessary, they always step up when we truly need them.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great, hence your great culture in your company. Let's pivot into the real guts of running the business. A lot of people think HVAC and plumbing is just tools and service calls, but we both know it's operations, systems, hiring, margins, and so much more. So let me ask, what's the most frustrating part of running DMC services right now?
Um, lack of quality employees, honestly. We are a unique company. We're not for everybody. We don't pay commissions. I don't believe in paying commissions to technicians. That is very unusual in my field, as companies have gone to flat rate pricing and commissioned based technicians. I understand why they're doing it. It does probably help the bottom line, but at the expense of who?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of vehemently opposed to flat rate pricing because it's not transparent. And I'm vehemently opposed to not paying technicians a fair wage for the hours worked and forcing them to be salespeople, because by nature, if you do any kind of study on human nature and different personalities and archetypes, you don't want a technician to be a salesperson. You want them to be a craftsman. And there is a
Yeah.
huge difference in how those two personalities kind of move through the world. And that's the biggest frustration for me, is that my industry as a whole has gone in the direction of those two business models. And I just really don't think it is great for our industry because it breeds distrust. It, kind of makes us use car salesmen. The technicians who are really charming and can sell are very, very successful, but they also, are they taking advantage of customers? I'm a for-profit company. I want to make a profit so that we can continue to grow the business and give generously to the community and take care of our employees in a way that is exemplary. So we need to make profits, but I think that there's a line that gets crossed sometimes where people are so profit driven that they are absolutely taking advantage of consumers, and that breeds distrust for the whole industry and makes us all look bad.
Those are really great points. I mean, it just creates such conflict of interest when they're wearing those two hats, and I agree 100%. That again explains the culture. I mean, not just the culture in your company, but I'm sure the culture between the relationship between you and your customers, they appreciate that so much more. Your customers are probably like your employees, very, very loyal. Um, what areas, if any, feel like it's on fire? Like what, like dispatch, tech, installs, admin, like
I mean,
anything that's just like out of control ever?
we don't, well, I mean, there have been times in the 21 years DMC has been in business where it feels like the world is on fire. But right now, again, knock on wood, uh, things are pretty good. I have an amazing team.
Yeah.
I have literally the best team in Kansas City, maybe in the large, two state area, Midwest. Um, the men and women who work for me are incredible. They also understand and value what I bring to the table as an owner, and they appreciate that. And um, that makes me extremely grateful that they see that. I wouldn't say there's anything that is just like hugely difficult right now because I have a wonderful, amazing team and very loyal customers that continue to come to DMC because they hear about us. Getting the press that we got through the Kansas City Chamber Small Business of the Year program, being one of the top 10 small businesses for three
I
years in a
saw
row.
that. Yeah.
Didn't hurt. We've had great growth. We've gotten a little bit of press on that. And so people hear about us and then they see that we do great things in the community. For example, yesterday we had our annual Diamond Day of Service. What that means is that my entire team goes to one nonprofit agency and we knock out their, kind of honeydew lists or things that they can't, do themselves that save them money because now they don't have to pay somebody to do it. So yesterday we were at a local high school called Cristo de Rey. It's a Catholic private school, but the average family makes $38,000 of the kids that go to this school, and they don't pay. It costs about $20,000 for the students to go to school there. In terms of the hard costs for this is what it costs for us to educate a student, but
Sure.
no family pays more than $400, and some of them pay zero. And their business model as a school is so inspiring and interesting because all of the students have a work study that they go to learn real life skills. And
Wow.
some of these kids didn't even know, they come from neighborhoods where they don't see lawyers or accountants or people working in manufacturing, and the opportunity to have their kind of horizons expanded and work in real life scenarios is just extraordinary. It is an amazing organization. And yesterday, DMC donated the equivalent of $28,000 of labor and materials and equipment to the school to help them out. And I pay my team to go do that. So I'm not asking them, like, I have a very giving heart. I'd give you the shirt off my back if I could. But I want to exemplify what it is to be a good steward of the community and a generous giver. I don't want to force or shame employees to be like, well, you need to give up a day of work and a day of pay in order to go do this nonprofit work that is a passion of mine. So I pay all the employees, for their time out there. And it's a really great team building. Everybody has fun and they know they're making a difference in the community, which is awesome.
What a fantastic story, Karen. That is amazing. I mean, first off, the organization that you just described is amazing. The chance that I can't even imagine. I mean, those kids having the chance to have all that benefit and have that exposure to the workforce, as well as get that education in a private school for a lower income family. That's amazing. So, kudos to you to giving back to the community like that. That's phenomenal. I'm very heartwarming. I'm very, very, very pleased to know the type of work you're doing out there in Kansas City. But as we speak about growth, do you see any bottlenecks? I mean, outside of difficulty finding qualified staff. I mean, staffing is always an issue, but in this day and age, anyway, it seems like it's harder and harder to get, especially in the trades. But outside of that, do you see any other bottlenecks in your business when you're growing at all, or have you kind of mastered all that?
I wouldn't say we've ever mastered anything. That would be extremely prideful and vain to say that. But really, our biggest lid is finding qualified employees. Like I could double in size if, because the work is out there. People, there are customers who value what we bring to the table, how we stand by our work, how we're transparent, how we're accountable. If we make mistakes, because we do, we're not nobody's perfect,
Yeah,
but we own up to them. We look our customer in the eye and say, you know what, that was a miss, and we're gonna make it right. And we do that with no argument. I know, like, I try not to make things difficult on the customers when we've made a mistake. Now, there are certainly times with customers where you have to explain, I understand your frustration. I'm frustrated by this too. However, this is how things unfolded, and there was really no, like, we did everything correctly. It's just crap situation.
yeah, yeah,
You fix one thing, especially with HVAC, like mechanical units. Sometimes you fix one thing, and that was a contributing problem, but there's an underlying problem that until you fix the first thing, you're not able to diagnose the second. And people get frustrated by that. Or, on the plumbing side, and this happens a lot, people are like, you just came out and snaked my drain at the restaurant yesterday. Well, we can't control the fact that somebody flushed a diaper down the toilet today. We're gonna have to come back and do it again. And so there's things like that that are easy to explain. But the biggest lid on our growth is finding qualified employees who who fit our culture.
what
And
would be number two?
um oof, number 2 would hmm, I don't know what number 2 would be. We have great
That's fine.
banking relationships. Yeah, I've built great banking relationships. Um we manage our cash flow very carefully on the finance side. I have an amazing CFO. She's been with our company for 7 years. Um, she's great. I've got great dispatch. Our customer experience manager is incredible. She does an amazing job. Um, so from the workforce kind of internal standpoint, we do have really great systems in place. And so yeah, I would say that's probably the
Okay.
the 1 and 2 is
The,
finding great employees.
the one thing standing in the way of future growth, then. So I think I my next question, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one part of the business, what would that be?
I mean, I think it would be finding it easier to find qualified employees who fit our culture. It is extremely hard to one, find employees. It's become very expensive. 15 years ago, I could post a free ad on Craigslist and have 50 applicants in 24 hours.
Right.
Today, I've got to, spend $800 or $1,000, $1,200 or $1,500 on Indeed and hope I get 4 qualified candidates.
Just 4 applicants even.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, we get the applicants, but then it's are they qualified? Because we're always looking for, like, we like to build within, kind of build the farm team within our organization, but I only have so many slots for apprentice level, entry level employees. It's those high level technicians who've been in the industry for 10 to 15 years who also fit our culture. And that's not always easy to find.
they're tough to find.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I was going to ask what internal shift, tech, team, or process would create the biggest impact. I suspect it's going to come down to team. It's your biggest. I'm seeing a pattern here that your biggest issue with growing your business or being able to scale any further. Am I right? It's coming down to
That is it. That is the bottom line. There was a time, for example, I'll give you a good example of when things were on fire and it was really stressful. A few years ago, back in 2017, I'm a couple years out of buying the business from my ex. I have a great number 2 in the company who was helping me find new business, hire, mentor people in the field. And we decided we wanted to go after some, quasi construction projects. And so we started bidding on bigger jobs. And there were 2 in particular. One was about a $400,000 HVAC and plumbing job, and the other one was $310,000. And I thought, there's no way we're going to get both. So go ahead and let's just bid on both and see what happens. And as luck would not have it, we got them both. And, I didn't really realize at that time, and this sounds so silly to say, but I didn't really understand truly the differences between installers and service techs. I had a bunch of service techs, and now I was putting them in an installer role.
right.
That was a disaster. It was a disaster because installers are like factory workers. They do the same thing. They do it over and over. They're precise. They do it fast. Service techs are problem solvers. They're methodical. They want things to look really pretty, and they want they need to fix go through the processes to fix. It's slow. It's methodical. That doesn't work well with construction-based work. On the first project, we broke even, which was a blessing that we broke even. The second project, we lost $100,000 on that $300,000 job.
Ooh.
My company the year before had only done $1.2 million. So those 2 jobs were 50% of our, last year's revenue. That created a cash crunch that was almost the death of us. I mean, I walked up to the edge of not being able to make payroll, and veered over a little and then pulled it back. And it was a really stressful time in the business life of DMC. I was very fortunate that I had a home equity line of credit that had a 0 balance. And so I kept going and borrowing money from the home equity line of credit to loan to DMC to be able to make payroll. I mean, that was about a 6-month period where I would, call she was the account, basically bookkeeper at the time. And I'd say, okay, what's payroll? And she'd tell me the number, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to pull out $5,000 or $10,000 out of my home equity line of credit.
Yeah, I've been there. I call that feeding the beast.
It was relentless, and it was constant. I spent the majority of my day calling vendors, begging them not to shut us down so that we could get the materials we needed for the jobs we were doing. I got a PhD in that 18-month time frame. I also got really clear on what's a like to have, what's a have to have.
Yeah.
I have to pay my employees. I have to pay my insurance. I've got to pay the taxes. I got to pay vendors when I can.
Yeah.
But do I need to be a member of this chamber over here? Nope. That got cut. I mean, it was what I call now the slash and burn budget. I went through every single line item. How can I save money? We switched from, T-Mobile to Sprint. We, back when, our Verizon to Sprint, back when before T-Mobile and Sprint had merged. We changed insurance carriers. We changed health insurance brokers. Like if I could save $10, I was trying to save it. But we came out of that. And in 2019, we increased our bottom line profit over 200% from year to year. And so we did survive and we came out stronger just in time for the pandemic to hit. So I'm very grateful for the timing of that because going into the pandemic, we were solid. We were on, had solid footing financially. And we were able to kind of ride that crazy wave and get through it relatively unscathed.
Well, that's good. That's refreshing. I mean, you are in an industry that was, essential services and was able to stay working, but I'm sure it had its impact for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, because people weren't in their buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, in a commercial sense, for sure, there's going to be less demand. Let's talk tech for a moment. Are there any new tools or systems you're exploring that are tech based, and how
Um,
are you thinking about smart building tech, energy efficiency, or AI trends in commercial service work?
yeah, we're really kind of looking into how AI can help us leverage our jobs and the creative ways we can do it. I mean, AI is not at this juncture, until we get robots, it's not going to replace fixing
Right.
HVAC and plumbing. And I think we're a long ways from robots replacing that job. Um,
Especially on the techs on the service side.
yeah,
The install side could be much more assembly like, but I think you're absolutely right. I think you are in one of the best industries in today's landscape with the AI evolution. I
yeah.
really do.
And yet I still think there are ways to get creative on, how can we use AI to help our jobs be smarter? How can we use that to deliver better customer relations, more efficient job tracking? I mean, there are times where, we've got a pretty big pipeline and managing that pipeline, it gets a little hairy. And so we're definitely exploring those things. It's something that I don't want to just jump on a trend because it's a trend. I want it to, if we're going to do something, I want it to be meaningful and make an impact. And so that's kind of where we're at that point. We went paperless and used a dispatch invoicing system, gosh, 9 years ago. And, we're with our second vendor. Um, it's always interesting to talk to the other vendors and compare their solutions. But honestly, in the commercial space, I have yet to come across a commercial kind of dispatching program that is better than what we use now for the price we pay. So, sometimes sticking with the problem that versus the
Yeah.
problem don't
Double
know
yellow.
is a better choice. And I say that like, our dispatch system that we do use is it's pretty good. I would change if it wasn't good. So,
Good.
um, yeah.
Let's talk directly to the listeners, especially facilities managers or business owners. What's one thing people usually misunderstand about commercial HVAC or plumbing, whether it's pricing, timing, or choosing the right provider? Is that
Oh
something
gosh.
you see that's a general misunderstanding in the industry that people have about what you do?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a general misunderstanding. I would say there's probably two or three things that I wish everybody understood a little bit more. One, we are beholden to our vendors in terms of getting parts and pieces. There are times where jobs take, kind of string out for 2 or 3, 4 months because we literally cannot get the compressor we have to fix the unit.
Mhm.
That's
The
really frustrating for people. And it's not necessarily because of tariffs or because of, any other reason that, perhaps their unit is not a common brand and, that factory's backed up because they have supply chain challenges. So kind of understand, if they understood a little bit more that oftentimes the supply chain challenges are beyond our control.
got
And
it.
we're always willing to get creative, but we don't want to be so creative that we're doing more harm than good. It doesn't make sense to band-aid something with the absolute wrong piece of equipment that's going to create 12 other problems.
Yeah.
Where if we have to bring in, for instance, like temporary cooling in order to wait for the unit to be fixed, that makes more sense. And I know, nobody wants to hear that, but far too often people will just band-aid an issue and the band-aid actually ends up hurting the situation more. So that's one thing. And then I think the other thing is that we do believe in complete transparency on our pricing. If you look at any of our invoices, it's here's the rate for labor, here's the rate for the materials. And it's under market value, and depending on which what company you compare us to. We're not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive. But I think some people misunderstand that when we're charging $150 for an hour for a plumber, like that's pretty average in the industry. And I think sometimes people think that, they see on a billboard, oh, $79 drain cleaning. Well, you're not paying $79 for that drain cleaning. I promise you that. They're going to
Yeah.
get out there. They're going to find a bunch of stuff. It's $79 for the first 50 feet, but you've got to go 200 feet. And now the extra, the 51 to 200 feet costs you 4 times what it would have cost you if you just called a reputable company.
Sure. I always told people when I had my construction company, you can get it two ways: fast, cheap, or good. Pick
Yeah,
two. You know, like
exactly.
it really is. And but that's interesting. So again, coming back to your integrity and the integrity of your company, rather than put a band-aid on it, and rather than upsell them on new equipment, you find a solution to bring in temporary cooling or whatever it takes to help them deal with the lead time of the repair item.
Yeah.
So that's impressive. Excellent.
I think the last thing I would say to all the property owners out there is just because there's new, like right now, there's a whole lot of talk about the new refrigerants in the HVAC space. They're phasing out 410A. 410A just came, 410A was phased in, R22 was phased out since I've been in the business. So in the past
Yeah.
15 years, we're now on our third version, soon to be fourth version. Just because new refrigerants come out does not mean that the unit you have has to be replaced. And I fielded, I was surprised because I fielded a lot of phone calls where people just calling us, out of the blue, um, finding us on the, through Google search and saying, hey, I've got a unit that's, R410A. Do I need to replace it because the new refrigerants are coming out? I'm like, no. I was like, is it broken? Is it working? Is it because if it's not broken, if it's working for you, keep it, maintain it, make it go as long as it can. That is my business philosophy though. I will always tell people, you keep driving that car, driving that piece of equipment until it no longer makes sense to do so. Don't just replace equipment to replace it. That's not fiscally responsible.
No.
And
Good.
a lot of people in my industry hate that I say that. They're like, "What are you saying? You could sell them a new system. That's where we make all our money." Well, yeah, but at the cost of what? At the cost of your soul. I just that's not how I operate, and it makes a lot of people in my industry pretty salty with me that I say these truths, but they are true.
No, I mean that's how you keep customers for the long term. They trust you and they know that you're doing what's right for them. Are there any red flags for people to watch when hiring a contractor in your space? Obviously, not you. I think you guys are the pillar of the HVAC community in Kansas City. But when hiring a contractor in that space, what should people be watching for?
Um, let's see. Oh, there's so many things. One, if they refuse to be transparent on their pricing, if it's just, here's all the stuff you're going to get, and then here's the bottom line number. I'd be very skeptical on that. I would ask, well, what am I paying for labor? How much does that equipment cost? Number one. Number two, I would call their phone line and see who answers. And if they answer, and if they call you back in a reasonable time frame. Now, we work really hard at answering our phone every time it rings, but sometimes it goes to a voicemail. Um, but we call back really quickly. And I've lost and then won back customers who are like, every time I called this, XYZ company, I was put into some random voicemail and I never heard back and I had to call 4 times. So, spot check them, see if they're actually answering their phones and if it's a real person. There's a big trend in the telemarketing industry for
Yeah.
AI to be answering the phones, and you can't really tell at first until you were like realize, wait a minute, I'm not talking to a person.
Yeah.
And that's really, I find, a little frustrating. And then I think the third thing would just be ask them, what they, if it were them, what would they do? Try to like not just take for granted that they're telling you the best thing for you. And you can get a sense if somebody's like, well, if it were me, and they kind of have to think a minute, like, how badly do I want this sale? But you know especially on service things, if you call a company and you've got an emergency and you're a new customer and they can't get out and they can't guarantee that they can get out in 48 hours, I would ask yourself if that's the right partner.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Excellent. Well, this has been really awesome. And, you've been a great guest to have on here. One of the things you mentioned earlier is that you're looking into AI solutions for your business. And, that's that's our business is AI automation and helping businesses grow through using AI and automation. Um, I'm not sure you've got so much of your business dialed in. I'm really having a hard time seeing any holes, but there's always opportunity for growth. So I'm wondering if you'd be open to a follow-up call sometime for 20 or 30 minutes. We can explore what we may be able to do we can dig in deeper and see if there's something that we can help you out with, or at least just brainstorm what's out there for you. That'd
Yeah,
be super, super. Well, again, Karen, your story has been amazing. I love the way that you've transformed yourself from coming in part time and being the bookkeeper and learning QuickBooks to really embracing entrepreneurship and owning your business and digging in and learning all aspects of it so that you could grow and scale it the way you have, to being one of the top 10 businesses in Kansas City, two years running, I believe I saw.
three.
Um, 3 years. That's just fantastic. And, to have all your systems in place that really you've got it all dialed in, that you could have gone and served the country in Congress without missing a beat probably in your business. So hats off to you and what you've built. And I hope that other entrepreneurs, as they watch our podcast, are going to, glean some inspiration from you, and especially, women business owners in the trades. You're such an example of that, and so I appreciate that, and I hope that we can stay in touch. And if I can refer other places for you to share your experiences that might build and kind of inspire other women entrepreneurs, I certainly would like to do that. Where can folks go to learn more about you and DMC Service? I know I learned a ton from your website, which is fantastic, by the way, but
Thank you.
anywhere
You're the
else?
marketing partner. Yeah, our website, www.dmcserviceinc.com, is where you can find out about DMC. And then I'm on LinkedIn, just Karen Crnkovich. Crnkovich is spelled Crnkovich. Yeah, send me a note, and I'm always happy to connect.
Fantastic. Well, we'll link that your website in the description on the podcast here. And if you found today's episode helpful, please leave a review, share it with someone in the trades, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until then, I'm Corey, and this is the Pivot Point Podcast.